Greetings, this is Jackson Snyder, and what you're about to hear is a secret personal interview with Robert Eisenman, the professor of Dead Sea Scrolls fame and author of many books on New Testament studies and Dead Sea Scrolls, recorded on April 30th, 2017, with interviewer Steve Tremble in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This recording has only come out now, as we have just obtained Professor Eisenman's permission to release it, and I'm recording on September 23rd, 2017. This is part 3, uncut and unedited.
And those people who helped me get there were taking me up. They'd already left. This couple. I don't know what they were. I can't remember if they were Italian or something like that. And I took off down the path fast as I go. They were just getting in their car, and they drove me into Nicosia with them. And I had a pack at that time, and it was at the bus station. I got my pack, and I went up to the hotel, and the Turkish dentist who had been with these young ladies was still there. And I said, look, I've had some trouble with these. He said, I know, you're in real trouble. You're in real trouble. By the way, later I met some guy who told me I would have been killed in the situation I was in if I had stayed around.
Wow.
But who knew Cyprus well, who'd been a diplomat there and so on and so forth. Several years later I heard that. But I can tell you that I would have been killed because this is what happened. After the girls left, and I said to them, I've seen it. Mm-hmm. They came by in their car where I was sitting having my coffee before I went the next out to, and they said to me, and they stopped the car and they opened the doors. They're pointing the opposite way to go south, not north. And they said, "Hey," I can hear their voice saying, "English, American." Laughing as well. "You want to go for a ride? Hey." I said, no, I'm fine. "We take you for a ride down to Paphos." I said, no, that's okay, I'm okay. "Are you frightened? You frightened?" I said, no, that's fine, that's fine. And but I didn't know I'd meet the same people going and roasting the lamb up there. So this Turkish doctor had heard all about it, and he was frightened as hell, because he was Turkish and they were Greek. I said, "Look, I got to get out of town. I can't even stay in this hotel. I'm in danger." And he said, "You are in danger. You're right. You've done a stupid thing." I said, "Okay, well, can you help me?" He said, "Well, I don't really want to get involved, but I don't want them to see me, but I'll tell you what, I'll just take you out of town and drop you off." I said, "Because I know some guy up in the hills here who invited me to his village to stay with him that I met on the boat coming over, to Cyprus." He didn't fly in those days. Mm-hmm. And so he wouldn't take me to the village. It was up in the hills about maybe 10 miles outside of this town, up in the hills. And he took me out of the town. It was sort of almost, it was, I don't know, like middle of the day, midday or early afternoon. And he just dropped me and drove off as fast as he could go. And I could see the road that went up to this village up in the hills. And I got my pack and I started, I'd taken the pack from the bus station and I'd taken it and I was walking up this road, I think, feeling a little bit better, And I saw, as I was walking up, two cars drove past me on the dirt road going up to this village, full of guys. And I was kind of, worried me a little bit, but not much. So anyway, I got up to the village and they were having a fiesta. They were all dancing in the square, the handkerchief, all this kind of stuff. And I was very happy because it was a fiesta day. And I've included the story in that book, War, Territory, Nation. I've included the story, Cyprus, Aphrodite's Isle, and the title is a joke because Aphrodite is the goddess of love, but there was no love on the Cyprus I met, that I encountered. So anyway, they're having this fiesta in the village. I asked for my friend and they all said, "Oh no, he's not around, he's not here." I said, well, where is he? He told me he was a school teacher or something like that. "Yeah, well, he's away, but he'll be back later on. He's working in the fields today." And I thought that was strange. "He'll be back later in the afternoon, in the evening or something like that." I said, "Well, okay." I waited a bit and he didn't come. And I went over to some group. There were some old men who were sitting on a porch talking. And I asked some other people and I said, well, can I stay in the village tonight? Anyway, even if he doesn't appear, he told me to go up and visit him. I need to stay and visit him, And they said, "Those men are talking about it now." And the elders of the village were discussing it. And I had to wait. And I waited. And then towards dark, I said, if they don't decide by dark, I'm going with my pack into the hills. I have as much chance of surviving out in the hills and the fields as they do. They got to find me, and they can't find me very easily if they're looking, unless they have dogs or something. And I was determined to go. And then before dark really came down, they came over and said, yes, you can stay tonight, but tomorrow you must go. So I knew that they knew all about it. Right. And they did take me over to the school teacher's house. And the school teacher was a very sweet guy, and he had a younger brother, and they stood guard down by the door of their house to make sure no one came in to get me.
Wow.
And the next morning, they did take me down to the road. And, you know, I did get out on the road. I think I took a bus down further along the coastline, and I got out of Cyprus, met some nice people, got to Nicosia, and flew into southern Turkey, Adana. And then I, went up to Erzurum, which is in eastern Turkey. I'd already been there several times because I'd gone out to Iran when I didn't cover that situation that I had gone out there earlier on my way to India, supposedly, when the Kennedy Peace Corps called me and invited me. And
you touched on it.
Yeah, I touched on it. So anyway, I got up to Erzurum, we crossed the Dogo Bayazid and got to Tehran, went all the way across India. Did I touch all that?
Not yet.
When I went all the way across Iran, I know Iran like the palm of my hand. The Shah was still there. Mm-hmm. Tabriz was, the border was a place called Dogo Bayazid. It was great. You slept in the floor on this Dogo Bayazid station. You could see Mount Ararat in the distance. Oh, wow. It was really romantic. I went down to Tabriz, which is the next big town down there, and from there you take a train to Tehran. I took a train to Tehran. Then I took a bus down to Qum. Qum is where all the Ayatollahs hang out. I don't know what they do in Qum, but that's the center of extremist Shiite Islamic religion, and that's where all the big head Ayatollahs are. And then that's where Khomeini was and everybody. And then the Shah was still there. They hadn't thrown him out yet, but everyone hated the Shah. They hated the Shah. I don't know why, but they did. I guess they thought he was
Western ties, I think.
Western ties. They thought he was a crook and everything like that. Anyway, so I went down to Isfahan, and there was a lovely river town, and then I took buses all the way. I didn't hitchhike through Iran. And I went through Yazd, which was a very well little oasis town, and to Kerman, another oasis town. Later in my life, I read about Yazd because there was a big earthquake and destroyed the whole town. And I finally got to the other side of Iran, and it was so funny because every time you went up the mountain, they would all start praying, to Allah that they were going to make that the bus would be strong enough to make it up the hill. They would going Allah, Allah, and stuff like that. And it was really funny. And then actually my journals, I have a picture of it here in that book of mine, the New Jerusalem. I have a picture of the bus that I went on through that southern part of Iran.
From this point, because I don't know anything about that book yet, New Jerusalem, most of the rest of this part of your life is documented.
No, just poems. There's just poems in that book, but I have a picture of that bus. I mentioned Bus to Kerman is the title of a poem. But just quickly, the last town in Iran is Zahedan. And there, everybody is waiting for the train to come. There's no tracks. The tracks just start there. It's the Pakistan border. It's the Trans-Pakistan Railway going east to Pakistan, but that's where the train starts. And they're all sleeping on the sand by the tracks. They don't know when the train's coming.
And there's no train station.
No. Nobody knows when it's coming either. There is no schedule. And finally, you just wait you sleep by the tracks, and then finally the train came, and I, with everyone else, jumped up, rushed, got on the train, and then you're on the Trans-Pakistan Railway, and you're going through Baluchistan. You never saw a place like Baluchistan in your life. I mean, Baluchistan was crazy, You look at the people out the window because you stop at stations. They're all got dyed red hair, green beards, all kinds of colored. I mean, it's absolutely insanity. This is where the Americans fought in Afghanistan above Baluchistan. Baluchis.
Is this religious? Why they do this? Or?
I don't know why. What they're not Muslims. It's just. I don't know what the hell it is.
Wow.
Customary. Who knows? And it was like being in another universe. Anyway, I guess they are Muslims. But,
or Hindi. Are they Hindi?
No, this is still Pakistan.
Okay.
This is northern Pakistan, southern Afghanistan.
Okay.
That's where the Americans had to end up fighting there in southern Afghanistan. And the Blukies are up there, Anyway, it was crazy to go. Anyway, I finally get across Pakistan to, I guess, Lahore, and then taking the train down to Karachi. In Karachi, I had some friends. Again, this guy's family, the one I had sent to a kibbutz in the first place, the one whose sister they worked for the U.S. Information Agency, his father, and he was in Karachi, and I stayed in their house. And they were very hospitable, but they boiled all of the water, and I couldn't take, they were boiling everything out so that I couldn't take it. And I finally, I felt sick and everything. And in order to feel better, I went down and ate in the dirtiest part of the Pakistan market and got better immediately. I needed some microbes in my stomach. Anyway, I finally got on a boat from Karachi to Bombay. I slept on the deck of the boat, from Karachi to Bombay, like everyone else did. It's only a day's trip. And then in Bombay, I got involved with the Jewish agency people because of my connections. And they put me, they had a center for, poor Jews. And they put me up in a room there. So in Bombay, I got to know a lot of Jews, if you like, but also a lot of other people. And I went to see the dean of this college called Elephantine College. And I had a job offered me already at the American School of New Delhi. I don't know when that had come through, probably when I was teaching or on the road in Tel Aviv or thereafter. Anyway, I was going to teach the year at the American School in New Delhi. I got to New Delhi, and again, the people I had met in Bombay put me in touch with some of the people up in Delhi. They were all already gone. It was summertime, to the Simla Hills, to the cool areas. And they put me up in the synagogue of New Delhi in the courtyard on a rope bed, free. So I had a free accommodation in New Delhi, in the synagogue of New Delhi on a rope bed. And then I was going to look for an apartment to teach the next year at the American School of New Delhi. The job was all set up. Again, I don't know, something happened. My father, whatever it was. Anyway, I don't know what it was. I had to go home. I don't know what it was. It was 1962. I think I'd also received an acceptance from NYU in the Department of Hebrew and Near East Studies. I don't know when I had sent all these things out. So, meanwhile, I'd invited Heather to come out and live with me in New Delhi, and she'd accepted, and she was getting ready to come to New Delhi.
But you were changing your mind. You were leaving.
I'd found an apartment too, because I had friends in New Delhi who helped me, people I'd known in London and England, who helped me find a really nice apartment. I really was ready to do everything, but some of my father or NYU, whatever it was. And I resigned from that position, told Heather I wasn't going. Not to come. And I took the boat across. I went back down to Bombay, got the boat. You never went through the Indian Ocean in the monsoon. You went through things like this. The waves would be like this and go boom, and like this, boom. The whole boat would shake. You'd be like going up on the top of a mountain and dropping the thing off like 50 feet. Right. Just crashed.
Big trouble.
Like thunder. And and everyone was sick. They were throwing up all over the boat. I wasn't. I was fine. And I felt, I was good. I felt good. I slept up on deck because I had a third class passage. It was warm down there, so I went up on the deck. But that was the funniest experience to go through the Indian Ocean in this monsoon. And then we landed, before we went through the Suez Canal, we landed in, what's that place that American soldiers are in now? Anyway, it's next to Somalia, but it's not Somalia. It's on the Horn of Africa there, and I forget what the name of it is. Anyway, it's a seaport area, and everyone is beggars there.
Not Madagascar.
No. It's a little sort of zone there. I can't remember.
Sudan?
Huh?
Sudan?
No, it's below the Sudan. It's a little it's a little place, and we got troops there now.
Okay.
It's right at the beginning of the Red Sea, but I can't remember what the name of it is. Djibouti. And that's the name of it, it's Djibouti. And so went up, anyway, I stayed there, got off the boat there, and then it was a crazy feeling to have people on beggars and crutches and everyone trying to get money from you. Went up the Red Sea, and the boat stopped when you're going through the Suez Canal, the boat stops. It was a Messagerie Maritime. It was a French boat from Bombay all the way to Marseille. Wow. And so I went, I took the trouble to go over to Cairo and out to see the pyramids and everything. And I got to see this, and that's the picture in my book there that she has over there in that New Jerusalem is a picture of me standing next to a camel by the pyramids. It was the end of my voyage to India, you see. And then anyway, so I went up to Marseille and then, got up to Paris as usual. Paris was always the Mecca. Spent a few days there, went over to England. My brother by that time was coming to Cambridge to study at Cambridge University Graduate School, and Heather and I met him at the boat because Heather came down to London to see me, and he was going to get his master's at Cambridge in architecture and so on and so forth. He's been studying at Columbia for a master's degree as well, Columbia University. And so we met him at the boat. I was staying with an Indian woman who was the wife of the Indian ambassador to America, Lal. Sheila Lal, her name was. She was a very wonderful woman. Heather came down and she was staying there too. And we were staying in London and so on and so forth. And, and then, I went back to America on the Queen Mary or whatever it was. I think it was Queen Mary. The one that ended up in, Long Beach Harbor as a tourist boat. Right. And Heather came with me.
That's,
Heather came,
EQ2, I believe.
Something like that. Heather came with me. No, it wasn't that boat yet. It was the old one.
Oh, okay.
It was the Second World War one with 3 smokestacks and everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so we took that boat and we, the men and women were in separate, cabins in those days. You had 6 to a cabin or something like that with berths and everything. We came back to America and we came to my folks who were still living in Washington Square Village, and, Heather was with me, and, I started studying at NYU and, doing my master's, and moved to uptown New York, and we lived together, and slowly that grew closer and closer. And she went to the Hebrew Opan. She converted to Judaism. She got into conservative, and then went Orthodox. Of course, we knew we were going to go to Israel, and I did my master's at NYU, and I learned about the Dead Sea Scrolls in the master's program, and did all these Jewish and Arabic studies. Started studying Arabic and Hebrew and all these things, and got my master's. And the head of that program was a guy called Abraham Katch, and he was the son of the chief rabbi of Ramat Gan, and a very, very good fellow, and I have a great affection for him. Still, he's dead, and so on. Mm. And then I got into Columbia's graduate program in Middle East Studies because I was interested in Islam, and the famous professor there was the editor of the Encyclopedia of Islam, Joseph Schachter, German, who had fled Germany during the war and gone to Egypt, but he wasn't Jewish. He was, he just didn't like Hitler or anything like that. Mm. But he could read an unpointed Arabic text. He was an incredible professor, but you'd knock on his door and he'd say, "What do you want?" You'd go in with fear and trembling to talk to him. And, you might be able to talk a minute to him. And when he gave a class, he was an expert on Islamic law. So I did my dissertation on Islamic law with him, but he was an expert, but the point is he could read, he could read an unpointed Arabic text, and when he did a class, he just read from his books, right. What the publisher sent him, the proofs. He would read from the proofs right. of his book. He didn't lecture. I mean, it was as dull as molasses. But anyway, I took the orals finally with him and, went to pass the orals. And of course, he liked the idea of a dissertation in Islamic law, but he wasn't very friendly about it. And then, when Heather and I finally went back, and she stayed with my family in Jerusalem while I got my orals done. And we came back to, Jerusalem to write my dissertation, and so on and so forth. He died. Some point. Oh, and another guy took over my dissertation, which was actually maybe not a bad thing. I don't mean to be right. cruel, right. but that other guy was much easier than he
right.
would have been.
He gives you the pass.
Well, no, and I did work very hard on it. At that point was when we moved into the occupied territories.
Oh, okay.
And because we didn't want to live in we didn't want to live in these crowded apartment blocks that the Jews had, and we could rent Arab houses really very cheaply, or parts of Arab houses, and I got to know the situation in the occupied territories very well.
What part of the West Bank were you in?
On the Ramallah Road, on the way to Ramallah, a place called Beit Hanina I originally was, and then at the end of my stay there, I was on the Mount of Olives in an Arab village on the Mount of Olives above the graveyard where my great grandfather was buried. Wow. And, so that was a really interesting, I was there for about, I would say we must have been there for about, I came back to do my orals, defend my thing, but I came back and we were there for about 5 years before we came to Cal State Long Beach.
Wow.
And that's the story of my life. The rest I learned at Cal State Long Beach, teaching all the courses in the religious studies
Well, I found
department. I didn't have, pardon me, one last thing.
Go ahead.
At this time, the religion was part of the philosophy department, and they were just trying to break it off at that time. So they were just starting a new religious studies program. They didn't even have a department. They didn't even have the courses already. They had a few courses, but very few courses. So I came in as a non-tenured person at Cal State Long Beach, and I wanted to see if I would get tenure because I wasn't sure I was going to get tenure. I did get tenure after my first year. They liked me.
And they pursued you because you turned it down the first time.
I turned it down the first time, right? Because and they liked me, but I had to create a lot of courses because the courses I had were so dull that they were GE courses that students wouldn't take them, and if they didn't take them, the deans would cancel them. It wasn't this is not Berkeley or Yale or Princeton. This is Cal State, which is like the bottom of the barrel in effect. And, this was run, the board of directors was the state legislature. They didn't have a board of directors, a private board of directors, and you worked for the state, And I created courses that I thought would be interesting. Like I had an intertestament course. Who would take an intertestament course? A few people who know what that was. I changed it into Dead Sea Scrolls, and it just mushroomed into something really tremendously popular. And the New Testament guy was let go after the first year, so someone had to do his New Testament course, and they brought a guy over from history to be chair of the department, an older guy, but he only knew about Hinduism. So he wanted to, I said, well, I'll do it. So he said, okay, fine, you do it. So I did the New Testament course, I did the Old Testament course, I did the Dead Sea Scrolls course, I did the Modern Jewish Thought course. You have to teach courses. If you didn't do a lot of courses, you have to do Introduction to Religion. Over and over and over. That's the last thing I want to do. 300, we got part-timers to do those courses. Mm-hmm. I did the specialized courses because it would be too dull to do Introduction to Religion. This week Hinduism, next week Buddhism. I didn't know anything about those things anyway. I'd studied Arabic and Jewish things, and I had Arabic and Hebrew and Islamic law and stuff like that. And so.
And you told me earlier you could take these courses online for free?
Now, yeah, they're all there. I've got them all up. When I knew I was going to retire, I set a camera up in the classroom, and I taped all my courses that I was teaching, when I was close to my retirement. And a guy in Canada who knows how to do this, I sent him the tapes, and he turned those tapes into YouTube videos. Wow. And they're all online now as YouTube videos.
And how would you find them?
Well, you can look up Robert Eisenman and YouTube, but you can also, I think, if you look on roberteisenman.com mm-hmm. or robertheisenman.com, I have two websites. Okay. The YouTube videos are actually, the links to the YouTube videos are listed. And once you get on one, they're all along the side of all the others. So gotcha. I've got the Islamic Religion and Culture course up there. I think I've got the Paul and James course up there. I think I've got because I knew I better get these things, taped. Otherwise they'd be lost. I think I got the Old Testament course up there. I think I got the Modern Jewish Thought Zionism up there. I think I've got just about, everything I taught is up. The Christian Origins is up there. Wow. And, I think about everything I taught and everything I know I learned from those courses.
And
I didn't learn anything except the Islam I knew from my graduate studies.
Previously.
But I didn't Modern Jewish Thought Zionism. Are you kidding? Do you think I had ever read Herzl or Jabotinsky or any of these people? No, of course not. I read it as I taught the course and took, one step ahead of everyone and learned more from the course than the students learned.
And this was in the 70s, 80s, 70s?
It started in 73, and I became chairman of the department around 76 or 77, and I was 10 years chairman of the department, and I went to Oxford and became a fellow of the Oxford Center for Postgraduate Hebrew Studies, and I went to the Albright Center in Jerusalem on my sabbatical because of the Dead Sea Scrolls work that I did, and I had a National Endowment for the Humanities Fellowship at the Albright Institute of Archaeological Research in Jerusalem, which is in East Jerusalem, and then I started leading archaeological digs out to the scroll area, but you couldn't dig. But what we did was we surveyed everything. We brought the radar ground scan people out there. Then I got involved with Bejint, who started working for my books, and he got involved with Rennes-le-Chateau, which was the center in southern France of the whole Mary Magdalene cult and all this sort of thing. So I went out with him and got involved with his radar ground scan people out in the Rennes-le-Chateau situation. And so I did archaeological work out there in surveying.
You were still a professor, or you had left?
No, I was still a professor, yeah. We would go out in the winter vacation period.
Wow.
We would take the students out for 2 or 3 weeks, And we do all these archaeological expeditions in the 2 or 3 weeks in the winter vacation. You could go down to the Dead Sea in the winter vacation and you were home free,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
You wouldn't want to go down there in the summer.
Right. I've been to Israel a couple of times. I've been to Qumran.
Yeah. But you wouldn't want to go down, you wouldn't want to, yeah. It's better in the winter.
Yep.
So we do in the winter break, we'd take these groups out there and do our work and so on.
You said something earlier that I would like to highlight real quick.
Yeah, I don't think we'll talk much more though, huh? This is about getting towards the end.
I just got a few other questions. But
Right,
this one in particular really
go ahead.
interested me. You mentioned a connection between the Qumran community during the wars.
Qumran, not Qumran.
Qumran community.
Like KU, just.
And the destruction that the Romans were doing, and that they had fled to Masada.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, could you?
Why? Well, the reason is that the
Elaborate.
Qumran documents were found on Masada. So if there's Qumran documents on Masada, that means people from Qumran fled to Masada. They wouldn't just have appeared there out of the blue.
And this was independent of the Qumran findings. Qumran, the Dead Sea Scrolls. They found Qumran documents.
In the Masada dig, Yigal Yadin found Qumran documents up on the Masada dig that he did, which was after the documents were found at Qumran.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's spelled Qum, but you would pronounce it Kum.
Okay.
Qumran. So, so sure, I'm sure that they fled there. And the Romans destroyed whatever was there of a settlement nature next to where the caves are in the Qumran. But we walking surveyed the whole area. We were in all the caves, and believe me, any cave, whether they had documents in, turned out to be 11 caves that were found from about 1947 to 1957 or so. It was before we'd got out there. But the point is that they hadn't done an actual survey of the area. We did a radar ground scan of the actual settlement area too. We've published all of that work, and that's all on my roberteisenman.com site. People can get the papers and read the papers that we've written. It's also in some of my books I've collected in my collected essays. But the point is that Josephus tries to downplay the flight to the flight to Masada and call them all terrorists, Sicarii, and so on. But they fled up there. They had families, a lot of them, and Josephus is honest though about what happened, because he was a witness and a Roman, he was a turncoat and a Roman collaborator, and he was adopted into the imperial family, and that's where he got a Roman citizenship and so on. So I think, as I said in my talk today, I think at some point he did run afoul, and his sponsor Epaphroditus was Paul's colleague in Philippians, and he was very much involved with both the Nero, and he held the sword which Nero ran on. Epaphroditus held the sword that Nero committed suicide on, and later on Epaphroditus was Vespasian and Titus's secretary for Greek letters, and he then sponsored Josephus's works, and Josephus dedicates the Antiquities to him. And but Epaphroditus was executed for unknown reasons by the second son, Domitian, the Flavian, the second son of Vespasian, and that would be around 96. And ultimately, Domitian was killed when Trajan came in, and so on and so on. And a new dynasty took over. So there was something wrong, crazy about Domitian, but he was a very murderous sort of person. And I don't think Josephus survived that. Don't think he could have survived his patron. People say, when did Josephus die? Nobody knows. Must have died around 103, 104. I don't think so. I think he died along with Epaphroditus. That's just
you don't hear much of him.
No, you don't hear anything about him. But he published the Antiquities in 93, 94, something like that, and then Epaphroditus was killed, about 95, 96, something like that. And so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, people just theorize when he might have died, but no one knows, no one hears anything, and my feeling is he couldn't survive much longer than...
His patron's gone, he's gonna...
Epaphroditus, well, he had already been adopted into the Flavian family. But you'd think when what's his name, Domitian, I forgot how Domitian met his fate, whether he was killed, I think he was. But I think he was assassinated by one of Flavia Domitilla's servants, but whatever. The point being that I don't think Josephus could survive that, but maybe he did. There is no way to know. We don't know anything about how Josephus ended.
And wrapping this up, what would you say is your personal one most significant achievement or contribution you feel like you've made in your lifetime of work?
Well, my poems are nice and fun, and actually, my friend here, Dr. Snyder, told me that one of my poems was prophetical, and I read it today for the first time out loud in my whole life, and he's right, it was.
I thought so. I thought it was.
And I wrote the thing, like 50 years ago. So I wouldn't, or 45 anyway, 50, I don't remember how many years 67 was, but anyway, whenever I wrote it in June of 67, and it's in that, the New Jerusalem at the end. Actually, I used to rip it out of the book when I passed it around the department because I didn't want people in the department to see it, So when the book was passed around the campus at Cal State, I ripped those last pages out lest people would see it, what a nationalist poem that was. Obviously the most significant contribution I've made is to relate the scrolls to early Christianity. The academic elite, the so-called, and they still don't accept me, obviously, or this, the official schools, the consensus, if you want to call them, think the scrolls are earlier and a forerunner to Christianity. No, they're not a forerunner. They're what Christianity was in the first century, because those guys don't even know that Christianity is Pauline Christianity, and they don't even know that there was a Jamesian Christianity. They're so unsophisticated, even though they're at Harvard, Yale, and all these places, they are not very, because their problem is they only teach 1 or 2 courses a term. At Berkeley, a professor would teach 2 courses one term and 1 course the next, and only in their speciality. So if I was at Berkeley or someplace, or at Haifa or someplace like that, I would teach Islam over and over and over and over and over again, and maybe I teach an Arabic course, and that'd be it. You wouldn't teach the range of courses. Cal State Long Beach gave me the opportunity to master a range of courses and then see the connections. Right. And one person in one of the courses actually said to me, well, isn't James the Just, isn't he a tzaddik? And I said, oh my God, yes. I didn't make that discovery. A student pointed out to me, isn't he a tzaddik? I said, oh my God, yes, he's a tzaddik. And every time the word tzaddik is mentioned in the Pesharim or the interpretive documents that Qumran, it's related to the righteous teacher. Or the teacher of righteousness, so oh my God, the tzaddik is the teacher of righteousness. Of course, James the Just is the teacher of righteousness. Wow. And of course, nobody accepts that. But so you want my most significant discovery?
Yes.
I feel that I said at the end of the James book, who and whatever James was, so was Jesus. I taught historical Jesus courses. They're online. I've got that online. They're all online. You'll find at my websites, roberteisenman.com, robertheisenman.com, and the whole key is that, if you're looking for the historical Jesus, which everyone cares about.
Right.
Paul knows nothing about the historical Jesus. It's so crazy. You can write all these letters and talk all this stuff, and what? Only one thing about Jesus, that he was crucified and that there was a Last Supper. That's all you know about. People didn't talk to you. You didn't meet other apostles. You didn't know any gossip. You didn't know anything else. It has no other historical details about Jesus except that, and that there's a brother James. That's all he knows. He about maybe 3 facts about Jesus. How can a guy who's supposed to be a contemporary and supposed to be a follower know 3 facts about this person?
Right.
He doesn't know anything. And the point of the matter is that, as I said in my book, in order to find, and everyone wants to know the historical Jesus, people have been looking for the historical Jesus for a century and a half, and so on and so forth. You don't need to look for the historical Jesus. All you have to look for is the historical James. And I think that's the most important. Cal State Long Beach taught me that. That's the most, I didn't learn it at Columbia University during my doctorate. My doctorate, my book on Islamic law is a good book, but I didn't learn it doing that or studying with Professor Joseph Schacht, who was the editor of the Encyclopedia of Islam, or Dr. Abraham Katz, who was the son of the chief rabbi of Ramat Gan or someplace like that in Israel, and, had taught at Dropsy University. I didn't learn any of those things from any of those people. I learned it by teaching at Cal State Long Beach, and I feel that the most important contribution, of course, they don't, there's a lot of hostility between faculty members there, competition for jobs and things. I'm not invited back even to teach my specialities as an emeritus professor. My brother's still teaching at Yale, and he's 5 years older than me. But that's the way state universities are. They look for the cheapest person, and they, there's no honor.
Bid wins.
There is no honor among, I hate to say among thieves, there is no honor among that situation there.
Wow.
But the point is, I feel that the whole thing is everyone looking for the historical Jesus. Once you found the historical James, you found the historical Jesus. Just like if you look for John Kennedy, and you find Robert Kennedy, you'll know a lot about John Kennedy.
Right.
And it turns out people didn't even know that James was his successor. You'd have to look at the documents carefully, and only the end of Acts reveals that, and even Paul stumbles along with that particular item, although he does mention that the representatives of James, the party of the circumcision. I'm not insisting on circumcision. I don't want people necessarily to do it. I will do it because it's a tradition of my people and has been for, 3,000 years or 2,500 years, and I'm going to do it. And, the Muslims have picked that up correctly and so on from that Abrahamic, background. But Paul heaps abuse on it. So, the point is that I feel that if you want to find the historical Jesus, once you found the historical James, you found not James was Jesus. Jesus did not fall very far from that tree. And the fact that James succeeded him even proves that further. So I think we do know that Jesus would have been crucified as a revolutionary. James was certainly destroyed in a similar way. And the war against Rome erupted 3.5 years after James's death, just like the prophet Daniel spoke about a time, 2 times and a half. And I think all this stuff is interrelated. These people went through by these prophetical pronouncements. The scrolls are full of such things. So I think the conclusion of my James book is the most important contribution that I have made. That is, who and whatever James was, so was Jesus.
Thank you. This is going to be a tough one. This next question.
Tough? Oh, I thought we were finished.
Not quite.
Oh, I thought we were done.
No, I saved the tough one for last.
Oh my God, I may not answer it.
You may not. In all of
I like that ending.
And that was a beautiful ending, and thank you very much.
What's the next deal? I'm not going to do it.
As a professor and as a poet and someone who's written a lot and taught a lot, what would you say has been the most accurate and fairest criticism of your body of work that you would say was the fairest criticism? Any artist can stand criticism.
I can answer that very quickly. None. And I'm done. No fair criticism. None.
You're lucky you got that much out of him.
No, wait.
I'm done.
Can I ask you one more? Last one.
No,
this is seriously the last one.
You can ask it.
Okay.
I may not answer anymore.
What is your current study and your current direction that you're doing now?
I'm not sure. I'm not going. As you see, the thing that I've done right now is a totally different thing. I published and put together the essays I did back in the 70s after the Yom Kippur War, which are not archaeology or history or biblical or anything else. They're studies on the political situation in the Middle East and my reaction to the almost destruction of Israel in the Yom Kippur War, and that Cyprus story that I told about how I almost fell in between the wars of the Greeks and the Turks and things like that. I was taking old manuscripts that I've never had a chance, being a professor, to approach.
Right.
And I think I've done my work on archaeology, history, and religion, and the New Testament, and the scrolls, and everything. And I think it's adequate. It stands, I think, my friend here, right, would agree. It stands by itself. I don't have anything to add to it. There's nothing I feel like adding to it. Or my publisher says, why don't you write the story of how you freed the scrolls? I would if I could, but I'm not sure I remember every detail. I don't want to get into a legal situation over that, over that issue. I may send him some material if I find it among my notes on that subject, but I see that my brain isn't as clear and, as accurate as it used to be. So I don't know as I can approach that subject with the same insight and finesse and, excitement and, intelligence as I could have 10 years ago. And I'm not sure I want to undermine myself by doing something superficial. So I don't think I can do something on telling the whole story of the freeing of the scrolls. And I'm not even sure I can able to do anything on the historical Jesus any better than the courses I taught. And anyone wants to do that, just go go type down the course. Sure. And not going to have some typist type down the course for I'm not to bother about. What I want to do is get someone to upgrade my videos. Maybe my friend here will help me upgrade, because people say that the new systems don't accommodate the sort of YouTube video situation that I presently have. They have to be upgraded in some way.
I know just the guy.
Do you?
Yes, I do. Guy in Atlanta. He has credits about this long, and he joined the Yahad, and he volunteered to do anything.
So let's get them all redone in the more upgraded style, can we?
Sure we can.
All right. Let's do it. Everything that I've got online.
I'll get in touch with him tomorrow.
That's great. You're on. Done. Jackson, that's really kind of you. That's Jackson Snyder with a very kind offer. So as far as what I'm doing, I think we need to upgrade the videos. Mm-hmm. I think I have to die and leave that to civilization to have as the best I can do. Mm-hmm. People say they enjoy my courses. I've never watched myself. Mm-hmm. I never look at myself. I don't want to look at myself because I'll say, oh, that's not good enough, or you didn't do a good enough job, or you could have done better, or why didn't you put it this way? I don't want to know, and I don't read my own books again. I do a little bit. I read the poem today because Jackson pointed out to me that it was prophetical. I'd forgotten that it was prophetical, and he was right. And it is a great poem. I have to admit it's a great poem. And it was written right during the 6-Day War. And you know how it was written? I get that everyone buy the New York Times every day. It was written right. I got the pages. It's scribbled all on the pages of the New York Times in ink, and then at some point I sat down and typed it up from those scratchings on the pages of the New York Times. And so I put it in that New Jerusalem, even though that's supposed to only be the poems up to and including the passage to India stuff and ending in the synagogue, sleeping on a cot in the synagogue courtyard in New Delhi. But
did you feel some kind of actual prophetic anointing when you wrote that thing?
I can't remember, Jackson.
I'm sure.
I can't remember. I was obviously
the urgency of it.
I was obviously it was so miraculous. It was so miraculous what happened, and particularly as you see when you read the poems, the wiping of the airplanes off of the runways like that in one stroke was like God's hand, So yes, obviously you felt the urgency, and I don't want to claim prophecy and being prophet, though I did subtitle the book Poems and Prophecies, so I knew there were prophecies in there. And but what is a prophecy? Urgency. A prophecy is speaking in heightened language about world and coming and past events.
Inspired speaking.
Well, that's kind of you thinking. I must have been, because when I read it, it sounds inspired to me. But I could see that some people could be quite offended, and I was very careful on the campus. So I got one woman that teaches Hinduism on the campus, an American woman, not an Indian woman, and she's married to, I think, a Muslim guy, and I know that she hates me, and I know if she found something like that, she'd have had me up before the before the committee of scholarly blah blah. Who knows? I would just didn't put that stuff out there. But let me finish. There's also all these novels I told you about that I was working constantly on from 1956 until I gave up and went to graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't give up and go to graduate school till I quit the job in New Delhi. Didn't take the job in New Delhi, but came back and started the MA at NYU. From that time, you can't be writing novels anymore, you know, but I did write the novel once again. I have to be honest with you. I was living in the occupied territories. I had finished my dissertation on Islamic law in Mandate, Palestine, and modern Israel. It was published by Brill as Islamic law in Palestine and Israel. I think they cut the title down to make it more, you didn't need modern Israel. You didn't need Mandate Palestine in Palestine, Israel. Okay. And I had a time in between the time that I submitted the dissertation and I had to go back and defend it. And I was living in Beit Hanina, which is on the Ramallah Road. You were asking where on the, it was about maybe 5 kilometers this side of Ramallah and about 8 kilometers outside of Jerusalem on the Ramallah Road in a beautiful old stone house on the top floor. It was absolutely, that's where I knew about poop in the stairways. How nobody would go and clean the poop in the stairways because all the workers were there in Israel.
Oh my.
Well, so the point is I did then retype everything from the novel once again because I had a lot of energy in me, and I do have another version from that period. And some people have read that version and say that's the best one because there are 3 different versions of the same material. So yeah, that's what I have. I have gone back. I have retyped it, and I have a one that I wrote, again, not original for my brain, but retyping the material and rewriting it after I did my dissertation, which would be, I would say, about 1972, because I came to Long Beach in 1973. And I've been out in California ever since. And I've had a few sabbaticals in Oxford, twice in Oxford, and once at the Albright Institute. I've had 3 different sabbaticals. I've taken them all overseas. I felt that was the best education for your children, to take them overseas and give them that international experience when they're still, before they are grown up. And they all remember that really well, taking boats, being on the Mediterranean, renting cars in Germany, being in Israel, they didn't like their schools too much where they went, but that was it. So I did type that up, and someone who has looked through the manuscripts for me, I can't read them myself with any effectiveness, and I'm going to have to start when I leave you tomorrow. God willing that the planes are still flying in the ice storms. I will try to go through some of those manuscripts and see if I can get do the novel that I had started. Do the novel that I had started. How many years ago would that be? 1956. How many years ago was that?
Well, it's
60
years ago, roughly.
Yeah, do the novel that I started work on 60
years ago. But
I don't think it'd be fair to to be scholarly stuff. I think I've done it all.
Would you be open to allow Jackson and I, he doesn't know this yet, to take your poem that you read today, which made a deep impression on me personally, and as you were reading, I got a flash to do a kind of a docudrama of the poem with real footage of the war mixed with you reciting the poem. I'd like to get you reciting the poem in your words.
As long as it's clear it was written at the time and not written today.
No, if you have like photographs of the period.
If we make it clear that it's at the time and not that, I'd be willing to cooperate with you. Yeah.
Yes, fully.
If Jackson approves and thinks it's a good idea.
No, I don't know. That would be really in competition with my version of it.
What's your version of it? What do you mean? What's that? I don't even know it.
I said, Robert, do you mind if I read this prophetic poem and record it and sound effects?
My brain is dead.
That's all right. I'm glad it is.
Yeah. What, you said on the phone or in an email?
Yeah, I saw on the phone.
Yeah,
I'm only kidding there, but I do have, I did a dramatic reading of it.
Well, no, I don't want to compete with you, Jackson. If you feel that would be competition.
No, I'm just kidding.
If we could get Robert.
Well, I would rather, frankly, come down to your area and do it
Oh, yeah.
Rather than come back to Tulsa. I've been here, but I've never been to your
You're
area.
welcome to come anytime.
So
That's fine.
Let's do
No,
it
we can
down
record
with
it in
him.
Florida. That's fine.
Let's do it
Yeah,
down
you
with
both
him.
come down, sure.
Oh, absolutely. Have to do it like that, yeah.
Now, so
That'd be fun.
I would need one help from you, and that would be besides you.
Oh, you cut this off now.
Well, we're
not
officially
recording
done.
this
We're officially
anymore.
done. We're talking business now.
Well, that's what I mean. We don't want this recorded, though we're talking business.
Oh,